Hi everyone. I'm Hannah, and today I'm going to be teaching you all about the butterfly effect in regards to organizational communication, but also I'm going to make some comparisons to day-to-day life and how this effect is all around you and super prevalent within life, society, and all those good things. So to start off with this topic, what I was kind of more thinking was I would start off by teaching you more about the larger picture, which is just a small little chunk, and then diving more into the specific, like what is the butterfly effect, examples, models of it, a little video, and I think these ways will present this topic in a way that is engaging but also informative. So you're gonna understand it hopefully by the end. So let's start off with the chaos theory, in which the butterfly effect stems from. So the theory, from a definition standpoint, is a little complicated, can be a little complex. So I'm gonna read you what the definition is, and then afterwards I'm going to explain it in more of an approachable manner so that the theory can kind of stick and make some sense. So the chaos theory, by definition, the branch of mathematics that deals with complex systems whose behavior is highly sensitive to slight changes in conditions, so that small alterations can give rise to strikingly great consequences. So like I said, right there, that can be a little overwhelming, or it can be a little confusing. So if it was, and maybe to some people that wasn't and it made complete sense, that's okay too. But for some of us who get a little confused with a lot of technicality, I just made it a more simpler idea to understand. So essentially, systems the theory describes look as though they are 1, disordered, 2, random, 3, unpredictable. Chaos theory tries to find some underlying order in which appears to be random events or even data. So this little blurb I got from information, obviously outside of myself, to help me describe that better, which I think is a way easier way for understanding. So essentially, the systems that the theory is describing are random, disordered, and unpredictable. So that's basically what the chaos theory is. It's unpredictability, in a sense that the outcomes then from these systems are chaotic. So hope that's sticking, and I hope that makes sense. So now what we're going to go into is what we're here for, the butterfly effect. So the butterfly effect, before we dive into the definition, is what makes the chaos theory true. So without the chaos theory, we wouldn't have the butterfly effect. So hence why we have to go over that background information and describe what that was first. Okay, so remembering that the chaos theory, so we're going to go back, we're going to rewind a bit just to imprint some things in our head. So the chaos theory is essentially systems that are random, unpredictable, and disordered, disorganized. Okay? Secondly, what we need to remember is the butterfly effect is the cause. The butterfly effect makes the chaos theory true. So those two things are what we need to put into our brains and remember. Okay? So just keep those kind of in the back of your head because they will help you further be able to understand the theory more and just get a better feeling for it. So now going into the definition of the butterfly effect. Butterfly effect. The idea used in chaos theory that a very small difference in the initial state of a physical system can make a significant difference to the state at some later time. So I'm going to read this one little part again slowly. The initial state of a physical system can make a significant difference to the state at a later time. So, with that right there, later time. So, the butterfly effect essentially is that one small thing at one point in time can then affect multiple things later. That later could be in a year, that later could be the next day, that later could be that night. It's literally just from the initial point of something relating to the result of something else through effects along the way. So, to get a little more technical with this, to get a little more technical with this, there's to understand this a little better, now what's going to happen is I am going to give examples, and I'm going to just try to make it more approachable to the organizational communication side before we dive more into the personal, less professional, aspect of the butterfly effect, just so then it's easier for you to pick up and learn on. So, when researching this topic, there were many, many variations of this saying, just different countries and maybe a different initial standpoint. So the one that I kind of liked the most, because, I don't know, it just sounded nice. So, when a butterfly flaps its wings in China, it can lead to a tornado in Kansas. So you're probably like, can it? I don't think so. But that's the overall idea of the butterfly effect. So the idea is that the initial point is the flapping of the butterfly's wings. Okay? And then those initial waves of air, those initial flaps or flutters, then led to a tornado which ended in Kansas. So, like I've said before, it's the initial point moving along the line to a later destination. It's a specific point. It's leading up to something, right? So, the flapping of the wings, the initial point, which then went all the way over to the tornado. Okay? So obviously along the way there's going to be other effects that can happen, that can occur, that probably did occur, but from this point of view, it's the initial to the end, or to the big picture, the bigger sphere of things. I guess it's a better way of describing. So, like I've said, I'm talking about the initial factor. So when we're thinking about, well, how did this happen? You know, you're in a situation and you're like, how did this happen? How did we get here? Which I think most of us normally ask ourselves. Sorry. You know, this initial point is normally just super insignificant. It's something that you or I am not going to think will lead to something else. So the insignificant initial then leads to the significant picture at the end. So that's once again just another way of explaining what this is. So there's an example for you that I found. One of the places that I was getting information off of was a website, and it was dedicated to like management and how management is dealt with the butterfly effect. Just very good job of explaining it. At the end of the video, I will have my citations of where I found all my information from, so you can go to the end after, and if you're interested in this topic some more, and management dealing with butterfly effect is something that you would like to explore more deeply in, I would highly encourage this website. It was very informative. So the example is, in the workplace, this can be very relevant, being the butterfly effect. Small changes towards something, independent, can unknowingly impact the outcome of, say, a larger sphere. So say a project, a promotion, a paper. So this small thing that you're working on can then turn into this unimaginable thing at the end. And I think a lot of the times in management, in your day-to-day job, you think these small tedious tasks that you are performing aren't, going to get you anywhere or aren't going to do anything. However, through these small insignificant things, something along the way could pop up. And that essentially is because of the butterfly effect. Makes sense, right? I think it does. Hopefully it does to you too. So, now that we've gone over that little example, that little blurb, we've gone over our definitions, I also wanted to touch upon this issue that I had when I was researching the butterfly effect, because from what we know from the definitions that were presented, we know that the butterfly effect is essentially something that happens from the initial point that can be, which probably is, an insignificant partner or party, which then develops to be something different later in time. It's something that ends to be unpredictable, like the chaos theory that we talked about prior to this, right? Randomness and unpredictable and disordered, right? So like we talked about that. So, like I was saying, when I was researching the butterfly effect, to me, in my head, I was kind of like, this sounds really familiar. This sounds like something that I've heard of more frequently and more often, which is the ripple effect. So I don't know if during this video you've been like, is she talking about the ripple effect? Because that's kind of what it sounds like. That's what I'm comparing this to. And if you are, I did the exact same thing. I was kind of like, well, what exactly puts the ripple effect here, the butterfly effect here? What are the differences between the two? So I'm going to go over the butterfly effect definition once more. Then I'm going to read you the ripple effect definition. Then I'm going to compare the two so we can separate them, because I don't want you to be thinking that the ripple effect and the butterfly effect are the same thing, because even though they look and seem very similar, they are different. So I think this is a very important thing to go over before we continue to move on with examples. So, the butterfly effect, definition. The idea used in chaos theory that a very small difference in the initial state of a physical system can make a significant difference to the state at some later time, right? So like I said, could be tomorrow, could be a month from now, could be 2 years from now. We don't know. So that is that. Secondly, we're going to go over the ripple effect by definition. So, a situation in which one event produces effects which spread and produce further effects. So, you probably know this example. It's very commonly used. The ripple effect, when looking at this in a more simpler way, we get a bowl of water, we drop a pebble in it, and little ripples of the pools of water expand out from that rock, right? So that was the one event, right? And that, you could argue, is the initial state, okay? So that's where this can lead to some confusion. So contrasting, I should say, the two, so that we can get a better look at these. So, ripple effect. Is a term used to describe a situation where, like the ever explaining ripples that we just went over, so the ripples of the water expanding out can affect the initial state and can be followed outwards incrementally, but it will stop. It's not going to go on forever. It will eventually stop. The butterfly effect. So, the butterfly effect is dependent on the initial conditions, okay? Where a small change at one place in one time will then affect a previous outcome, okay? So, also to remember with the butterfly effect happens in nonlinear systems. So remember that, because that is important. Nonlinear systems, the butterfly effect occurs in. At this point, actually, in the video, let's go over now 3 things that we were supposed to remember. 1, the chaos theory is disordered, random, and unpredictable, right? Those are the 3. Secondly, what we were supposed to remember was that the butterfly effect makes the chaos theory true. Okay, now number 3. The butterfly effect happens in non-linear systems. Okay, so keep those up there because we will be going back to them again. And they may be coming back later on when asking questions, when going over the material that we have learned. So try to keep those up there and try to remember them because those are some key important points to this. Okay, so non-linear, where we were at before, system. So when we are looking at the ripple effect and when we are looking at the butterfly effect, pretty similar, like we've already discussed and went over. However, the ripple effect, like said, is a term essentially used to describe situations that are ever explaining the ripples on the water, right? So it's situations that just kind of keep going out. They keep going out. It is from an initial point. That is correct. However, when we're looking at in comparison to the butterfly effect, the butterfly effect is essentially the initial point, boom, ending. Okay, ripple effect is more, it's going, it's going, it's going, it's going, it's stopping, right? There's no more continuation. You're gonna have to throw another pebble in the water in order to get some more ripples. Butterfly effect is a constant motion, basically, in a nonlinear system. It's something that is going to keep going. And I think, you know, no matter how small the situation may look at the time, looking back from where you started, you're going to realize, like, whoa, this was a big thing that happened. And our lives are basically all based off of the butterfly effect and how decisions are made, and how the progress from which we get to the initial point to the ending, right? So there is an end, obviously, to the butterfly effect. I'm not saying that there isn't an end to that stage, but in the ripple effect, it's more based off of a situation basis, which is occurring by something that is almost on purpose. It's something that is happening because, bam, I threw the rock in, you know? So by throwing that rock in, we're creating the ripples. By me having a conversation with somebody and describing my point of view, and then that person later on noticing, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't agree with blah, 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 but it was something that I said before. So the ripple effect is something that was created, was something that was more, not so much you weren't thinking, it was something that was kind of more thought about because that pebble was thrown in the water. Okay, so I hope that made a difference, and I hope that makes sense overall. Okay, so to now do more of an overview of everything we basically talked about, I'm going to show a little mini clip, and it's Jurassic Park, so that's exciting. It's gonna make the video way more cool than, you know, any other video. So I'm going to show you that video, and then when we get back from it, we're going to go over the video, and then we're gonna get into our examples. Okay, so hope you enjoy the clip, and here it is.
Now, eventually, you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right? Hello? Hello? Yes?
I really hate that man.
See, the Tyrannosaur doesn't obey any set patterns or park schedules. It's the essence of chaos.
I'm still not clear on chaos.
It simply deals with predictability in complex systems. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park you get rain instead of sunshine.
Why?
And then I go too fast. I did a flyby. No, give me that big glass of water. We're going to conduct an experiment. It should be still. The car's bouncing up and down, but that's okay. It's just an example. Now, put your hand flat like a hieroglyphic. Now, let's say a drop of water falls in your hand. Which way is the drop going to roll off? Of which finger, or over the thumb, or the other side?
Thumb. That's it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, now freeze your hand. Don't move. I'm going to do the same thing. Start with the same place again. Which way is going to roll off, do you think?
Let's say back. Same way.
Same way. Same back. Same way. It changed. Why? Because tiny variations, the orientation of the hairs on your hands.
Hey, Ellen, look at this.
The amount of blood distending your vessels, imperfections in the skin.
Imperfections in the skin?
Microscopic, and never repeat and vastly affect the outcome. That's one.
Unpredictability.
Right? There. Look at this. See? I'm right again. Nobody could have predicted that Dr. Grant would suddenly jump out of a moving vehicle.
Alan!
There's another example. See, here I'm now by myself, talking to myself. That's chaos theory.
Okay, well, we're back. Hope you enjoyed that little clip, and I hope it shared some more insight and maybe some more perspective for you, and just made it that little more fun, this video. So now we're just going to do a quick overview. I know the video is pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to do an overview just to make sure we got everything correctly. Okay, so the scientist who's in the black, who's Malcolm, he decides to do a little experiment on Ellie because she's confused with the chaos theory, and she's also confused with the butterfly effect. So essentially in the video what happens is he says to her, okay, put your hand out and I'm going to drop some water on it. And as the water droplets go down, he asks her to predict where she thinks the droplet's going to go. And then the second round that he does it, she says, oh, it's gonna go the same way. And what do you know? The droplet doesn't. So that right there was explaining that these little tiny things, like he said in the clip, the hairs on her hand, the little lines and imperfections while he's flirting with her, is what then makes this change occur. This random, unpredictable, disordered change. Okay, so right there, that tells you that. And then right after, as they're done their little flirt, Alan decides to vacate the car, and as Malcolm then says, oh well, that right there is the theory itself, because who could have predicted that he would have left the moving car, right? So that's butterfly effect right there. It's just these little increments which then affect an outcome. So I hope that helped with understanding this some more, and maybe just put a different perspective on it. So now what we're going to move on to is our examples, which I'm pretty sure you've been so excited to hear about this entire video since I first mentioned it. So I have 3 examples that we are going to go over. 2 are in the workplace, so organizational communication deals with that. The third is a more not realistic, I don't want to say that, but it's more of a common scenario. We'll put it at that. It's more something that could happen to you if you happen to be in a relationship, because that's what it's about. But first we're going to go over the first 2. So, first example. Also 2. So this theory can for sure happen in organizations. It happens more than we would think. So, you know, like we've already talked about, doing something insignificant, well, that you think is insignificant in your job, can then lead to something that you didn't think could happen, right? So it's just the way things turn out because of the butterfly effect. These little small increments can then lead to a bigger production by the end. Okay, so example. So you're at a meeting, okay, and your boss is talking, and he mentions something about a project mentions something about a project, but not specifically to you. He's just kind of making a little blurb about it in the meeting. It's like, oh yeah, it'd be pretty cool if we decided to launch this new incoming brand on our Facebook page. And you're like, yeah, that would be cool. So, the meeting ends and you go back to your desk and then you're just kind of doing your own thing, and a few days later go by and, you kind of can't really shake this idea out of your head. You're like, this sounds like a really good idea. So you take it upon yourself to then test it out. Let's just try it. Let's see what could happen. Let's make a little mock-up, and then if that works out, we'll go further. Or even you just decide, what the heck, I'm gonna just do the whole thing. So you then start researching the idea, you start putting your time and effort into it, and then this project, proposal of the project becomes the project because you ended up putting the time and the effort and the energy into it because you thought, yeah, that's a great idea. So the initial point when we're overlooking this scenario was, you're in a meeting and your boss just happens to bring up this idea that he has to everyone, not just to you. It just kind of blurts out. You start thinking, it's a really good idea. I think we should do this. So then you take it upon yourself. So see, it's the chain of events. So then you yourself decide to make something become of it. So then you work on it, you produce it. You haven't obviously put on the market because you can't do that without your boss's approval. But then your boss is like, oh my gosh, yes, that is awesome. So then this whole idea and then your work and your preparation for it becomes the project because you did it. So see, blurts it out, doesn't think anything of it. Meanwhile, you couldn't stop thinking about it and you made the project happen. The butterfly effect. Okay, scenario number 2. So, let's see. Sorry, just getting my notes together. So, another great example / scenario is the idea of outside things occurring in organizations. So this isn't, this idea comes from the outside. This isn't actually from the inside or within, like our first example. So, number 2. So, your building of your industry, corporation, whatever it may be, happens to be on a road that the town or city decided needed some massive road work. So now people in your building are having all these difficulties getting in, getting out, figuring, everything out driving wise. They're just not having a good time. They're not happy. But, you're like, sorry, I didn't make this idea. This was the town's idea / city's idea to change the roads. Or, they had to fix them. So before this, though, your parking lot in your building, the vicinity where your employees park and, store their bikes, wasn't very good. A lot of people within the corporation were angry. They were, frustrated, and there was just numerous amounts of problems. So, you get to thinking, well, I have all these people who are mad because they can't get in, they can't get out, and their time now is just being crunched because of all these external issues with the roads. So then you remember, oh, we also had an issue with this before, this whole project started. People were already complaining about the parking lot and about what was happening within the bike lanes and just everything to do with it. So you're like, okay, I think we need to change something. So you decide that you are going to make a huge new parking plan. So essentially, this all goes underway while the construction is going on. But obviously, during this time, you have found another parking area for employees to park at, so they're not having anywhere to park and put their vehicles of transportation. So you decide, okay, like I said, you're gonna fix this. So you fix the parking lot, and during this point of time, also too, people in the corporation now are biking more because they're like, okay, well, we're gonna try something new, I guess, because the parking sucks. Secondly, people are now carpooling because of the lack of spaces, because of all these different extremities going on. People are deciding to walk to work, right? So during now the time from the city's construction and your own corporation's parking lot construction, people are using different modes of transportation to get to and from work. So once this whole parking lot is finished, you put in more there. Well, now that's all finished, there is now way more bike lanes. There are carpooling parking spots in priority sections, so then people can get the front line, because you should be encouraged to carpool and to use better transportation methods. The parking lot's wider. They even made an underground parking lot so that more cars could fit. However, the top of it was geared more to eco-friendly parking and transportation methods. There's even now a plug for smart cars and for not for smart cars, for electric cars, So because the city decided we need to fix these roads, the corporation then finally decided to revamp their parking lot, which then impacted the employees to use more efficient modes of transportation, which then impacted the corporation to be a more sustainable, more friendly, and more encouraging environment. So, a factor coming from the outside of a corporation can ultimately affect the inside. The butterfly effect. Number 2. See how this is going? It's pretty interesting when you think. You can even probably look back on your life and make some connections, be like, whoa, the butterfly effect. So, last example that I'm going to go over. This is now just a separate little blurb that I thought, this could relate to people and could, if these examples weren't making any sense or they were like, not really buying it, this would then maybe just make more sense. So, scenario number 3. So, you're in a bad relationship. You and your partner haven't been getting along lately. And it's been going like this for quite some time, actually. It hasn't just been lately. It's been going on for quite a while. So, you're getting kind of fed up and you're really upset all the time and you're not very happy. It's something that, you can't decide if you should stay in or if you should go. So one day, you're just on Facebook and you're trolling around, and one of your friends from high school, who you haven't seen in years, posts a YouTube video on her feed that you end up happening to see, and you're like, oh, okay, like relationships. Let's look at and see what other people are dealing with. Meanwhile, you click the YouTube video. the YouTube video happens to be somebody talking about healthy relationships, what's not healthy, and your overall happiness is more than what you're dealing with right now. You know, and you're watching this and you're like, whoa, this makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should really rethink what I'm doing with my life right now, because am I happy? No. So then you're like, you know, I'm done. I'm out. Like, why am I staying in this? So you then break up with your partner and your life just, you know, goes back to normal. You're happy again and you're not sad all the time. You're not fighting with somebody. You're not having to deal with all these extra issues that you used to have to deal with. So, beginning, you know, the initial, you're just trolling on Facebook, happen to look at this video while it makes complete sense to what you're dealing with at the time, and then you decide, you know, it's time to change. It's time to change what's going on in my life. So, once again, for the third time, the butterfly effect is right. So the initial point, you know, then affecting a later point, you know, it's just something that's been happening for a while, but then it affects and you're like, I'm done. So that's what that scenario was. Hopefully that made sense. I think it did. You know, you can connect people. I feel like you could connect to that and be like, whoa, that's happened to me. I've looked at something on the internet and just, it's then sparked from there, and it just was a random thing. It was a random occurrence. It wasn't something that, you know, your friend was like, your boyfriend sucks and you're not happy, so maybe you should leave. It wasn't that. It wasn't even your friend being like, you know, like, I'm just not very happy right now and I feel like I need to change something because why am I feeling so down? That could also be the beginning of that scenario. It could end up being your friends just venting to you, and then, you know, you're like, well, you know, like, happiness is kind of more important than dealing with this stuff, right? So, and just, you know, something that is just a very insignificant thing turning into a significant difference later on down the road, right? Unpredictability right there. So I hope those three scenarios, you know, made sense, and I hope it kind of put more of like a, okay, I'm getting this more now. This makes some sense. Alrighty, so lastly, actually, no, I'm lying, that's not last. I can't get away from me that easily. So the next part that I'm going to talk about really quick, because, you know, if, you know, the effect itself, you're like, can really just confuse. You're like, oh, I don't know what this, you know, you're still like, I don't know. There is a movie, and you've all probably been like, when is she going to talk about the Butterfly Effect movie with Ashton Kutcher? Because that's why I'm watching this video, you know, and now we're going to talk about it for a little bit, because it's a tiny bit relevant to the topic, just a little. Essentially, if you've never seen the Butterfly Effect, Ashton Kutcher is in it, and he decides to go, basically what happens is he goes back in time through his blackouts and changes these little increments within his life, which then end up changing the bigger picture. So the idea is that if you're going to go back and change something, it's going to change the things later on, because like we talked about in the beginning of the video, the butterfly effect essentially, you know, it's little things that you don't notice. It's little things that you're not throwing into the water. It's not something you're saying to somebody that's changing their mind. It's something that you're like, this happened because of this, but I didn't realize that this was going to be an effect, you know? So essentially, the movie is just him going back, changing things, and then changing the order of events. So his life is not what it was at all, because these little things ended up changing. So I haven't seen this movie in forever, but he changed something because his, spoiler, but his girlfriend dies. And so he changes something, and then they're in the same university, and they're walking home one night, and then this guy starts a fight with them. He ends up beating him up with a baseball bat, kills him, goes to jail. So, and then doesn't see her. So it's one of those things where if, we're changing these little events, it's going to change the bigger picture. It's going to change the bigger point, and these things come at random. These things come at insignificant times. They're not a planned occurrence. So, if that movie sounds, interesting to you, and yeah, go watch it after. There's also this quote that I found that I thought also was very relevant to, obviously, the butterfly effect, but also to people's lives again. So just to make this more of a comparable statement to, life, and comparing life to the butterfly effect and making them combined. I think this, I'm going to read and you're going to be like, you know what? It's very true, because I've explained this and I'll explain it after again, but I'll read it to you first. So, people need to learn that their actions do affect other people. So be careful what you say and do. It's not always just about you, right? So like I said before, if, your friend's venting to you and about one of her issues, and then you're like realizing, yeah, like I need to change this, like it wasn't your friend telling you, it was your friend just blurting something out, and you're like, yeah, like this makes sense to me. So I think that's just another example of something that is more easier to grasp, I guess, with this concept, and something where it can click and be like, it's also just to show like how the butterfly effect works, and how it is so so much around us and in our lives, obviously, and it's just a way to show that. So last thing that I'm going to do to kind of end this off, I thought I'd leave it on more of a creative note. I wrote a little poem that kind of goes off the butterfly effect, and yeah, so it's, once again, it's something more comparable. It's something where you can think about it and be like, okay, yeah, makes sense. I can see this happening in my life. I understand if something was changed, maybe this would all be different, right? So, yeah, I'm gonna read it to you, and hopefully it sounds okay. When looking back at things we've done, we often wish we could change them and make them none. To turn back time and make them disappear, but thinking now, would I still be here? Would I be the person I am today, or would I be someone lost and strayed? Maybe the things we wish were gone were meant to happen, like the rising sun. If we didn't make these certain decisions, we wouldn't be making these ones today. And for this we need to believe that to turn back time would be a waste, and we wouldn't be here as we are today. So don't look back and contemplate, because who would you be now in this exact time and place? Okay, so I think that's just something to think about with the butterfly effect. An example, it's something that, I think a lot of us look back at decisions we've made and are like, oh gosh, I wish I could, erase that from my memory. I wish I could take that back. I wish I could go back in time and, start over. But like we've seen in many movies, going back in time doesn't fix a lot of things. It changes things, but it'll never fix them. It might make them worse. And in my little poem that I wrote, I think it's just something to reflect on and to think, if you were to go back and if you were to change something, would you still be this person you are today? And these things happen for a reason. And the butterfly effect is, it's something that happens, and we just need to kind of accept it. The butterfly effect could also could lead to good things. The initial to the end point. It could also lead to something bad. You're at a party and there's some drugs there, and your friends are all doing it, and you're just like, oh no, I'm not gonna do it or whatever. And then your parents call you and you get in a fight, and you're like, I don't care, like, don't tell me what to do. So then you go and you do these drugs, and then later on down the road you're addicted, you have to go to rehab. These certain little effects end up changing our lives and making us better people or making us not. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can now take from this what the butterfly effect is, and yeah, I hope you learned a lot today. Hope you have an excellent week and an excellent rest of your day. See you later. Bye. Thanks for watching.